Turn on the news, scroll social media, or sit through a corporate training, and you'll hear the same message. Masculinity is toxic. It's become the acceptable stereotype, the only group you can openly shame without consequence. But here's the problem. The message is built on a half-truth, twisted into a cultural weapon. And if we keep buying into it, we're going to raise a generation of men who are afraid to be men. The people shouting loudest about toxic masculinity are living in societies built by the very men that they criticize. The bridges they drive on, the toilets they flush, and the poop goes somewhere and you don't even know, you don't even have to think about it. Let's look today at the topic of whether, in fact, masculinity is toxic. Of course it isn't. Let's go.
If someone like Charlemagne or Napoleon isn't your concept of masculinity, then you're not reaching the full scale of things. Because if you're a successful Instagram influencer, that's nothing compared to Napoleon. And so and my question for a lot of these guys is, what do you actually want? Because lots of people are hedonistic because they have nothing better to do. They don't actually want to do it. It's what people tell them they should want.
My name is Casey. I'm the Rumble Right Dad, and I am the only right-wing therapist that I've ever heard of. And today we are covering the topic about toxic masculinity because all of my peers in my profession are talking about how masculinity and the inherent characteristics of men are bad for a society and bad for a man, and especially bad for women. But is that true? Let's look at it today.
That's my question. What are the traits of masculinity, like in your opinion, and how does one strive to be more like that?
Masculinity is getting what you want. And I don't like the current paradigm of masculinity, which is just get really jacked, hang with a lot of hot girls on Instagram, and go to Dubai.
For anyone new to the channel, I have been a therapist for 13 years, and I've seen the degradation of at least half of our culture, which is the masculine half, because we've been told over and over that we are not good for anything. However, I'm raising a son in this society and I want it to be better, and I would love your support in doing that. So if you want to come with us, let's look at the only therapist who's going to tell you common sense about this issue especially, and we can do this together, man. Let's band together and try to make a better future for our children, because when men thrive, so do women, and so does society. So it's time to look into it.
I sometimes explain this to dudes by making a run for the Second Amendment. A lot of our guys listening in will absolutely be like, yeah, Second Amendment. And I'll say, what's more important, do you think, the First or the Second Amendment? And it'd be easy for us to point out that the founders put it second for a reason.
Did you know that psychology actually has a term for what masculinity looks like, which is pro-social dominance? That means the drive to use leadership and influence to help others, not to exploit them. When masculine traits are encouraged, trained, and aimed towards service, men thrive and the people around them thrive too. Haven't we seen what it looks like when a society starts to devolve from some of those traits? The last 20 years, potentially even the last 80 years, has been an indication, because men have been told that really truthfully it was their fault that 2 world wars happened, and all of the strong passions that they once held needed to be deflected in order to make societies thrive. But look at the results. The world order that has come out of that decline in manhood has hurt everyone.
I say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
There is a cultural cost to demonizing masculinity that has resulted in fewer men seeking to engage in marriage and relationships. Depression and self-harm, meaning self-deletion, has increased exceedingly among men, especially the despair that comes along with drug use and ultimately, what happens after exorbitant drug use. Fewer male role models have been allowed in cinema, in film, in TV, in characters outside that come from the mainstream. Fewer and fewer men, and especially fewer that have been positively masculine, have been put forward. Take the strength out of men, and you don't get a safer world, you get a weaker one. Weak men create hard times. Weak men don't make the world safe. They make it dangerous. And I'm here to tell you that there are cultures and even religious practices that will not defer to the liberal world order when it comes to what it looks like to be a strong man. They will try to overtake our societies if we allow it. And that means that at least half of the world does not believe in our definition of toxic masculinity, and they will push their own narrative forward if we allow it. It's time for the strong men of the West to rise up. We are not toxic when we use our strength for the purposes of protection, provision, and for ultimately the better of society. If you turn the light switch on and the lights turn on, if you flush your toilet and it works, you have men to thank for that. It's time to put masculinity in its appropriate place at the hierarchy of society. That means teaching boys that their strength is meant to serve others, protect others, and be used and siphoned into the appropriate places for dissemination when it's needed. So when they need to protect their sister, when they need to protect their wife, when they need to protect their country, that they would have all of the chutzpah that they need to be able to actually push the button and to be strong. But when you tell boys over and over that they're toxic and that they're not allowed to let those traits flourish, then you actually get what you ask for. And that is ultimately going to be very negative if you ever needed that man. And to be frank, you need him already, because pumping oil out of the ground or cutting bricks, and using their hands to fix your cars, to build your buildings, to have bridges built. Certainly women can do all those things. And certainly there are always caveats that men that use their strength for negativity. There are certainly some influencers online that would push that narrative forward. There are podcasters, certainly, Fresh and Fit, among others, who just use their chauvinist nature to try to disabuse the other gender and the other sex. That ultimately has been the outgrowth of when you try to suppress manhood. That's what you get, because men ultimately want to conquer. They want to rebel against authority. And so if you make the authority the longhouse, do not be surprised when men revert to this chauvinistic nature that tries to simply put a stiff arm to the other gender. If we want a better future for our kids, we need men to master their masculinity, not abandon it.
I heard about that. You can shave your buddy or something.
No. All these guys are really mad because it's like an anti-masculine Gillette commercial. It makes like every man look like a misogynist piece of shit. It's such a disturbing commercial. It's like over and over again, men doing douchey shit. Like, hey, bro, aren't you selling razors?
Might I suggest a few outlets for this type of positive masculine thinking that have worked for billions of people over thousands of years? One, faith. Have faith in a religion. There are practices that don't necessarily fit into my Christian framework, like Buddhism, Stoicism, or other philosophies that actually operate within the framework of generating positive outcomes for men and for the women that they love. Those types of practices could frame the argument well. Secondly, we need honor. If men start to behave like honorable orientation to society, they will fight for what is true and right. And if we live a life that is based and founded most possibly that it can be in truth, we will be honorable men. Let's teach our boys and teach society what it looks like to do that honor well. Thank you guys for listening. I would love it if you like, share, and subscribe. Let's share the message. I'm the only common sense therapist who will say this: men are not toxic.